तेरा ही रिंगटोन है वो.
Sure, I'm happy to begin.
Begin with the opening remarks so that by the time you speak, people would have assembled.
Okay.
That's important.
Okay. Is this good
yeah.
positioning of the microphone? Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, friends. I'm sure all of you are enjoying the IFFI. There are a lot of films going around, master classes going around, panel discussions on. And today, we have assembled here for this press conference on a very interesting subject. I mean, this is on casting. As you all know, casting plays a very important role. It's a preeminent pre-production process. And the casting director has a key role in assuring a success of a film. As you know, it is a casting director who chooses the right talent for the right film, the right person for the right film, like that kind of a thing. I mean, it's a job that involves finding a. Otherwise, things would become something like a square pebble in a round hole. The job, no doubt, is challenging, but at the same time, I think it's very satisfying too, because if you would have introduced some new talent and they blossom, I think your contribution actually gets recognized in many folds. Today, we have one of the preeminent casting directors, very well known casting directors with us, Nancy Bishop. It's my pleasure to introduce her. She has done casting for more than 100 projects, mostly for films and television in Europe and the United States. And some of them include big names. Mission Impossible, it's 4, right? Mission Impossible 4.
Yeah.
Roman Polanski's Oliver. And Ridley Scott's Child 44. And hold your breath. I mean, she's also an Emmy Awards nominee for Anne Frank, The Whole Story. Nancy Bishop works out of London and Prague, but she had her education in the United States. She holds a Master of Arts in Theatre from the Northwestern University, Michigan. And not only that, she is not just a casting director, she has also been an avid teacher. She takes classes as well as on-camera training for budding actors on oral skills and presentation skills, as well as career marketing. And she has also been very active on the international film circuits. And this has been the first time. And as I remember, this is the first time we are having a press conference with a casting director in this place in IFFI. And this has also been her first IFFI for Nancy Bishop. It's not for me to take much of her time, because let's hear from her about the craft which she has excelled in. Nancy Bishop.
Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. And I also promised my publisher that I would mention that my book is on sale here. It's called Auditioning for Film and TV, and it is being sold at the bookstore here at the festival. So it's available now. And I'm also going to sign the book after my master class on Wednesday. I'm happy to sign a copy of the book anytime if you buy it before then. So.
I would request Nancy to give some opening remarks, and after that, we'll have a Q&A.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you very much, IFFI, for inviting me here. I've never been to India before, and it's really a pleasure. It's such an exotic place for me, and I'm enjoying learning about the culture. And I don't know very much about Indian film, and I want to learn more. And I'd like to learn more about the way casting is done here, and I understand that it's very different, and the process is very different. So I'm here to learn and hopefully to share knowledge as well. And I guess those would be my opening remarks.
I think that's too less. Please tell us. About your achievements.
Okay, well,
How things work in Europe and maybe United States.
Okay, well, I can talk a little bit about how I got to go to Prague in 1994, and at that time, Prague, the Czechoslovakia had just disbanded and become the director of an English language. And at that time, all of these films started to shoot in Prague because it was a good location. And they would say, Nancy, do you know any actors who speak English? And of course I did, because I was working in theater. So that's how I got into casting. And I didn't really know anything about casting. I hadn't been trained in film, I had been trained in theater. So I had to learn. And I learned that actors, there are some very, very good actors who don't necessarily come across well in film or on at an audition. So I had to learn with them, and I broke down the process into a into its strategy, into a technique, a method for actors to use for working in front of camera and for auditioning. And so that's how my career kind of developed, both as a casting director and as an acting coach. And because there were so many interesting productions being shot in Prague, that's how I came to being on, like for example, working with Ben Kingsley on Anne Frank. And eventually, so I started out just kind of doing the local casting. And then eventually I branched out so that I was doing more international casting. I was going to film festivals all over Europe and getting to know actors all over Europe. And then eventually was coordinating the European casting on a lot of big films. And then eventually got the office in London as well. So I can talk about that. I can also talk about, I think that what my master class is going to be about is I'm going to be talking to directors and producers about the casting process, because you're right, it is something that's not covered, and it's also something that isn't credited very well. And in fact, casting directors have had to fight really hard to even get credit on films, and to be mentioned and to be recognized. I'm a member of the Casting Society of America, CSA, and we're working very hard to be recognized, that our jobs might be recognized. Often when you see a film director talking about his film, he'll be interviewed and they'll ask him about the cast, and he'll say something like, and I'm saying he, sometimes directors are women, but more often they're men, and he'll say something like, oh yes, we found this actor, yes, I found this actor here, and we're all sitting there thinking, well actually you didn't find this actor at all. Your casting director found this actor. And so yeah, there is a long process of making lists of actors. There's like a kind of bureaucratic administrative process of checking to see if they're available, to talking to their agent, to maybe talk their agent into the actor doing it. There's also, there's many different levels. There's the kind of top level when you need attachment. Attachment means when you are trying to get the film greenlit. In other words, you have some guy who's ready to write a check, and he says, well, I'll do it, but I'll only write you this check if you can get these certain A-list actors on. So that's one level that the casting director works at. Getting talent to get the film made, basically. Now I work at that level, but I've also worked on lots of films. For example, Mission Impossible 4, where turns out I didn't have to cast Tom Cruise; it came with him cast. In fact, he owns the franchise. He was my boss. So for example, that, and then you're working on supporting talent, and then it's a very different story. Then it's quite easy to get actors to come on, of course, and everybody wants to come on. So I'm going to talk about both of those things at my master class. One of the things that is quite hard about casting and quite frustrating is that casting directors, we often know the talent that's good and the up-and-coming talent that's good, but sometimes it's hard to convince directors, producers, studios, the people who write the checks about what actors to cast, because they want yesterday's stars. They want the guy's picture on the poster that's going to sell the film. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the film is going to succeed just because you get that star's name on the poster. So a lot of our job is educating, or trying to educate directors and producers about the up-and-coming talent. Does that give you something to work with? I can talk for a long time, so I can keep talking or I can take questions.
Reserve something for masterclass as well. I think we can begin with a Q&A if all are ready. I think we'll begin from
Yes, ma'am. Talking about up-and-coming talent, do you scout them in the theatre scene or say in the film acting schools, academies? Where do you normally scout for new talent?
Well, all of those things that you just said, yes. We go to showcases that drama schools put on. I also teach a lot of workshops around Europe and around the world where I meet actors. Yes, we go to the theater and I go to film festivals. I'm a member of the British Academy screeners, and we get, we just try to watch lots of films, really, and then sometimes we even have to do. This I didn't mention already. Sometimes we even have to do street casting, where we need somebody who's completely unknown and who's maybe not an actor. So then, I've had to go out literally onto the street and find actors. So, and I think that some of the casting in India is done that way too.
You can take a mic.
I have a question. It is about established actors. Do they also need a casting agent, casting director?
Like Tom Cruise.
Okay, so it's an important distinction. There's talent agents and there's casting directors, and they're different people. So a casting director works for production. We're hired by production, so we work for them. The talent agent works for the actor. And those things are often confused, and in some countries, especially some smaller countries, that person could be the same person, which is against the law in a place like a more established place for entertainment, like Los Angeles, London. It's against the law it's against the law for a casting director to take any kind of fee or kickback from an actor. So the agent represents the actor's interest. And of course, it's very important for somebody like Tom Cruise or anybody at that level to have an agent, a manager, or somebody managing their affairs, to fight for them, to organize their contract, to make sure they're comfortable. And in fact, pretty much everybody in the entertainment industry, almost everybody has an agent. I mean, I have an agent, for example, to make sure that I'm taken care of and I'm paid properly and on time and all of those things. So agents are very important in the business. And my job is something else.
But the production house contacts you and not actors.
Yes, I am hired by the producers, yeah. But I mean, yes, actors are contacting me all the time. But I don't work for the actors.
Recently, Mr. Woody Allen. Recently, Mr. Woody Allen also has said that casting directors should get an Oscar.
Well, thank you, Mr. Allen. Yes, and his
so now
casting.
his work is being recognized now.
Yeah. We've been working on that for a long time at CSA, and that's great that Woody Allen is supportive of it. There are some directors who aren't supportive of it because they don't want anybody else to have a director credit on the film. So.
Yes, we'll come to it.
Madam, when the production house contacts you, do they give you a preview of the script, the whole script, or just a description of the actors that they're looking for?
Well, usually, I would say 9 out of 10 times they give us the script. Occasionally, if it's a top, like for example, again, Mission Impossible 4, I was not given the script until, at first I was just given the roles that I needed to cast, and then at some point I was allowed to read the script. But I had to go into a little locked room without my phone, and they took it out of a vault. And it was printed on red paper, so I couldn't copy it. And yeah, so some of these scripts, and it's the same with the James Bond script, they're very, very precious with the script. And actually, Woody Allen is very careful with his scripts as well. And I've never worked for Woody, but I understand from my friends, and I have friends who have worked for him, that when you go to one of his auditions, he doesn't give the sides out in advance. He doesn't give the scenes out in advance. He just, like, you get there and you get the scene there, you read it there, you leave it there. You know. So, but usually, I mean, almost everything that I've worked on, I've read the script, and they make me sign a non-disclosure agreement, which is pretty typical now.
If it's a musical, when singers who can act, or how does that work?
Yes, but I have to confess, I've never cast a musical before, but yes, it would work that way.
I just wanted to ask, who finalizes the casting? Is it the producer or the director? I mean, apart from the main and the parallel lead.
That's a good question. You know, if you have an auteur director like Woody Allen, for example, or, you know, like I worked with Roman Polanski, or, you know, somebody like that, it's always would be him. But I have worked on productions where, and including big studio productions, where the studio has a lot to say. And I mean, I'm working on a film project right now where it's at the level of attaching the talent. Again, it's the financiers have a lot to do with it, because they're the ones that are saying, well, we're only going to finance this film if X actor is in it. In television, it's quite complicated. There's a whole committee of people that have to decide, because you have the network, you have the channel, you have the executive producers, you have, actually the director is less powerful in TV, in the system, in the American system.
That's the studio system.
Yeah, the studio system. And well, but I mean the studio. I mean, when you say studio system, it's very confused now, because it's so discombobulated now. I mean, the studio system is, you know, you have everybody working for everybody. I mean, last time I was in Los Angeles, I went over to meet with the head of casting at Paramount, and he was on the Fox lot, for example. He was doing something with Fox. So it's like maybe Paramount was producing it, but it was being shot on the Fox lot and funded by somebody from AMC or what. It's such a mess right now, I can't even tell you. But yeah, the point is that there's a whole committee of people that make the decision. So it's very complicated. I would love it if it was just one person. It would make it much easier.
What you're calling mess, they actually call it Matrix now.
Matrix, exactly, yeah.
Just wanted to know how long this process goes on as a, you know, you are a film casting
hold it to
director,
your
film casting director. So how long this process takes? You know, suppose somebody you are selecting for a film as a female or male actors. So it took a lot of time.
Well, it's kind of like how long is a piece of string, you know? Because it can take any amount of time, really. I mean, there are some projects where you get talent signed on, and then the project's delayed, and then you lose them, and then it comes back. And sometimes you're shooting and you haven't finished casting. You cast the day before. I mean, it's just, you know, it's a creative process. So as you can imagine, that it can be quite chaotic, like any creative process.
Tell us something about your film publicity. Do you have PR in India also, or there only, or do you have your own personal PR?
I don't have my own personal PR. When I'm working on a film, I usually almost anything has to go through the press person. You know, I'm not allowed, on a specific film, I'm not allowed to give an interview unless I have the permission of the press person.
Yeah, my request is that please speak into the mic. This presser is live on YouTube.
My question is that I have learned somewhere that you are bridging the gap between Europe and America. You cast Europeans for the American films and Americans for the European films.
Yes.
What made you to do so? What is the, why do you do, what is the, any specific reason?
I don't answer.
Oh, it just has to do with the geography. I mean, I'm an American living in Europe. And very often European talent is required on American films, and vice versa. You know, I mean, we live in an international market, and I mean, you know, I'm happy to cast from anywhere. If somebody asked me to cast from India, I'd be very. I mean, in fact, I have some projects coming up that are meant to be shot in India. I'm not at liberty to talk about them right now because I can't. I don't have permission to bring them public, but I am working with a film company that is developing a couple of projects in India. So at that point, and in fact I'm already looking at collecting some Indian talent. So I mean, yeah, all casting is international, and China, for example, is a huge market, and more people are interested, or need to cast from China. One of the companies I work with has a relationship with the LA Beijing Film Fund, and one of the requirements is that a certain amount of the cast has to come from China. I've worked on productions that were Korean financed, and we had to have a certain amount of Korean talent. So yeah, sometimes it even has to do with the finances. You have quotas of cast members from different places that you have to meet.
Yeah, any more questions, please? Yes, please.
If you got an opportunity to
Ma'am,
direct,
please speak into the mic.
if you got an opportunity to direct in India, so will you go for that?
Of
Or you-
course. Are you going to offer me an opportunity? I'd love to come back to India. It's a beautiful country. Thank you.
I've got a question, ma'am, if you want, if you don't mind. Yeah. See, a casting director hunts for a new talent, puts it, and if the talent becomes very successful, let's take an example. Let's assume that you have cast A into a film or X, and that person becomes very successful. I mean, as a casting director, what has been your experience? What would be their attitude after they become successful?
Well, it depends on the person. You know, some people are very humble about it and very thankful to the people who gave them their start, and others aren't.
So it's a mixed
Yeah, of course.
mixed feeling, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they would be thankful to the people that started their career, but I've known times when they haven't been.
Yeah. You have been with the CSA, the Casting Society of America.
Yes.
That's right? Casting
Yes,
Society
yes.
of America.
Yeah.
It's a society, I mean, it's again a group of professionals trying to bring a degree of professionalism to the field of casting.
Yeah.
What has been its struggle like? Because casting, I mean, when you see it in a mainframe, the casting is basically a pre-production process. As you said, like, I mean, there was a difficulty in getting the name also in the credits put. What has been the struggle like of getting recognition for casting as a professional service?
Well, yeah, there's a lovely movie, actually. It's a documentary, and it's called, is it called Casting About? Wait, now I'm Casting By. It's called Casting By. And forgive me because I'm forgetting the name of the director right now. But it documents very well the struggle that from the early days when I mean, there was simply, like, if you look at old films, there was simply no casting credit. And I do think, I mean, and this is my opinion, this is not an official CSA opinion, but I do think it's partly because we're mostly women, and we're marginalized. And I think casting started with, it might have been the producer's secretary or somebody like that who was calling actors in. I also think that a lot of it is because we're particularly good at dealing with people and interacting with people, and it just also has to do with the film medium itself. It is the cult of the director, and as it should be. The director should get a lot of credit. But because of that, because it's the cult of the director, yeah, it's difficult for them sometimes to share credit. So that's one of the things that we're working on in CSA, and have made a lot of progress. So very often now you'll see it, casting by at the beginning of the film. But what this whole documentary was about was that there were lots of directors that didn't want casting director as the credit, because they didn't want another director on it. So that's why it became casting by.
Okay.
Please.
Yes, Deep. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. I think the way I understand it is casting director, the role is, I think, a step in the progressive evolution of film. So could you please tell when this role came about? And
Yeah, I couldn't tell you precisely, but like I say, I think it started way back in the early days of film. I think it was, it was the director and the producer would just call somebody in, and they'd have maybe their assistant, their secretary or something who would make the appointments. And then gradually the job became too big, so that secretary or that assistant, her role would get bigger until really she was the one doing the casting. And I think they had in-house casting in a lot of the networks, in a lot of the studios. They had like an in-house casting department, and then there was somebody who was the head of that department, and that person was working very hard, but yeah, again, not being recognized. And then so I'm sorry, I'm not able to give you a precise answer about like what year was the first credit or something like that. But I would refer you to that movie, Casting By.
Ma'am, we've often heard of the casting couch. I'm not sure if you're the right person to answer this or maybe comment on this. Is it reality, or what exactly is it?
Yeah,
I was
It's
wondering
like
why
a little-
this press conference. I was wondering whether it will conclude without a question.
My first book was called Secrets from the Casting Couch, and I called it that because I thought it was kind of a sexy title and it would sell the book, and then everybody was really disappointed in the book because I didn't talk about a lot of sexy things. It's like, in a way, I'm not a good person to ask because, I can guarantee there's not a casting couch in my office, and in fact, I don't even date actors. But I think it does exist I think it has existed. I think it does exist on some level, and I have a friend here who's an actor who says that it very much exists here, but this is just something that I've been told. I haven't experienced it firsthand. But really, you can't fool the camera and you can't fool the public. If you're not any good, it doesn't matter who you sleep with. So I would advise actors against it. Let's put it that way.
I think you have answered it quite candidly. On that note, you have some questions? Please go ahead. Yeah.
There are unions on casting, and there is a society in Europe and in US as well. So, do you scout talents from those registered society?
For actors?
For actors, and is it limited to the junior cast or as well as parallel and elite cast?
Well, in America, there's the Screen Actors Guild, and it depends on the project. Some projects we have to, and so that's Screen Actors Guild is SAG, S-A-G, and sometimes we have to cast SAG actors. Sometimes it's better not to cast SAG actors. It depends on the project. Some actors resist joining SAG because they have more possibilities to work non-SAG. In Europe, there are unions, but they're not so organized. as that. So no, we're not limited to SAG. It depends on the project, and in fact, a lot of the projects that I've worked on in Europe, they're trying to avoid SAG because of the limitations it places on the production. So sometimes, SAG can be a liability for an actor, actually.
There are other unions as well. So if you cast from one union, the other union people do not want to work. Is that a hurdle in your path?
Well, like I said, I mean, sometimes it's a liability. I mean, it's quite complicated in the U.S. too. There are certain states where you have you can work without being in the union. It's called the right to work. When you say there are other unions, what do you mean? There are other unions. Okay, so there's SAG, and there's other unions for other film professionals. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, right.
They don't necessarily have a relationship with each other. And the casting directors don't have a union. We have an association, and then the casting directors who choose to can work with the Teamsters if they want to be in a union in the United States. In Europe, we don't have a union.
Do you have any censorship like we have now censor board in India? Anything like that?
Censorship? No, I haven't.
Film classification, basically.
Yeah, film classification.
Yeah, she's asking whether there's any censorship in the United States. You want to ask for United States or UK? Because
Well, yeah, we have
she's
a-
American but based in London.
Yeah, I work on all
Maybe
kinds.
London, then she can explain more.
I have all different. I work on all different kinds of projects. I mean, it's not censorship, but we have to be aware of the rating. So if it's classification, yeah. So, if it's a certain rating, then you're not allowed to show nudity, or if it's if it's rated R. I mean, sometimes we have to get actors to sign a waiver, something saying, okay, so I understand that certain parts, and they're very specific about what body parts will be shown, and that they agree to that.
So thank you very much, Ms. Nancy Bishop.
Thank
This
you
was a
very
new
much.
subject, on which we touched upon, and I believe, it was very interesting. You shared your experiences. You spoke about the genre of costing and how it is emerging, and of course also he asked the most inevitable question about casting coach also, on which also you gave a very candid answer. Thank you very much, and thank you very much all of you, my media friends, for attending this press conference. And with these words, I conclude this press conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.